Welcome to the Diversity Connector podcast, where we explore the rich tapestry of human experiences. I'm your host, Gertrude Mache, and I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the country on which we meet today. I would also like to pay my respects to elders, past, present, and emerging, and together as we dive into conversations that bridge cultures, challenge stereotypes, and celebrate the unique perspectives each of us brings to the table. Each episode is a journey through stories and insights from a kaleidoscope of voices, each sharing their colorful narrative. Whether you're at home, on the go, or just anywhere in between, you're now part of a community that values understanding, inclusivity, and the beauty of diversity. So plug in your headphones, get comfortable, and let's connect through the power of our shared stories. Welcome, and thank you for joining us on the Diversity Connector podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Diversity Connector. This is Gertrude Mache here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia. And today I am graced with the presence of yet another fascinating guest. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our tribe. Please tell everybody your full name, where you're based, and share your story with us today.
Hello, everyone. Thanks, Gertrude, for having me on the show. My name is Janet Mindurwa. I am based in the sunny Queensland on the Gold Coast. I am originally from Zimbabwe, in a very beautiful landlocked country in the south of Africa. It's not in South Africa, it's in Southern Africa. And I know a lot of people often think South Africa is the country inside other countries or something like that. But Zimbabwe is just in the northern part of South Africa. It's a small landlocked country. I was born in the late 70s and grew up in a small township in Bulawayo called Nkulumani. It was a beautiful time growing up because you experience community. I experienced community from a very young age and started to understand what community looks like and the benefits of having a connected community from the time I was born. So I grew up in Kulumani, and I then I think went to school in Asha secondary school. Primary school. I went to a school around my area in my community called Mapugutwana. And then I transitioned to secondary school. I went to Asha Girls High. And upon finishing school, I moved to Harare, the capital city of Zimbabwe, where I started to work part-time. It was a time when my dad had gone through some difficulties in his business. He owned a small business that made clothes. He was a tailor designer, so he worked most of his life in that area. So I moved to Harare and started to work as a receptionist at age 16. I was always passionate about any work that involves helping people. I then had my first child around the age of 18. My son, who is now 26-year-old Trevor Tongai. From there, I moved back to Bulawayo, where I started to study for a secretarial and human resources course. I then found a job at a small factory in Bulawayo called Will's Group as a stores clerk and sales assistant. After a while, I met my husband, Vincent, and we then had two beautiful girls, Michelle and Megan. Vincent and I then moved to South Africa in 2003, where we lived until 2006, when Vincent found a job through an Australian agent who was looking for diesel fitters to move to Australia. So upon Vincent moving, I was undecided of whether I wanted to move from South Africa, because South Africa was quite good to us, and we were starting to build a life there. We had migrated from Zimbabwe due to economic hardships and the changes that were happening in the country. So we literally were economic refugees or migrants, and then in South Africa, we were fortunate enough to work, and we're quite comfortable. However, I think the move to Australia was an important one because we really wanted a secure future for our children. Upon Vincent moving to Australia, I was still in two minds, as I said, about moving here. In 2009, I then made the decision that it was time to join him, because, it's not okay for a husband and wife to live separately. So I moved here April of 2009 with my two girls and my son, Trevor. I then on arrival, I tried to get my qualifications accredited, but I was told that, I could only do small menial jobs like maybe admin or admin assistant. It was quite disappointing because I had spent some time studying while I was in Zimbabwe and South Africa, and was hoping that these qualifications will get me where I wanted. Anyway, I did not lose hope. So I found a job initially as a cleaner, and I then did a small course in medical reception, and was fortunate enough to find a job as a medical receptionist. I found a job in a medical center in an area called Binley, where there's a few people from low socioeconomic backgrounds. So I managed to get a connection with a few people that were attending that were from refugee backgrounds. From that, I had a passion to study social work. So in the following year, I enrolled in uni and started studying my Bachelor of Social Work. Upon finishing, I worked a little bit in brain injury support, and then I transitioned to the Department of Child Safety as a child safety officer for about 3 years, until I then transitioned to an organization that supports humanitarian settlement entrance to Australia. Upon securing this role in this organization, I realized quite quickly that this was my passion. This is what I wanted to do. It reminded me of community. It reminded me of being back home and communing with everyone, helping each other out, seeing each other succeed, and celebrating each other's successes. So that was the focal point of my working in this organization. Since working in this organization, I've held 4 roles. So I started out as a case manager, and then I transitioned to a cultural support worker coordinator. I then transitioned to a cultural and volunteering services manager, and I'm now the regional manager and program manager for cultural support workers. I think the importance of my role, although I'm not doing one-on-one support with clients, I get to play an important role in the client's settlement journey by allowing, the cultural support workers that are actually doing the support in community to learn the great skills that they then use to connect people into their communities. So it is, I guess, part of the journey that I walk with them, or the journey of leadership, where I am teaching people how to perform well in the roles that then support others to thrive in their different situation. I'm so happy to also have a lot of connections in community that often I can leverage on, that support me in my journey as a leader, and in my journey working in this space where you're touching lives and seeing the difference in people's lives from the time they arrive to as their settlement journey goes on. So I'm so privileged to be in a position where I am able to do this, and hopefully will continue to support our communities in many different ways.
What a fascinating journey you've been on, Janet. You know, listening to your story as a home girl coming from Zimbabwe. I also came via South Africa, so we could have bumped into each other somewhere along the line.
Yeah.
Really, really fascinating. So now you're here in beautiful Australia
Yep.
as a regional manager in
Yep.
Logan
Yep.
for Multicultural Australia.
Yep.
How do you work with community stakeholders to facilitate successful settlement for refugees?
Okay, so my role, how it's based is it's really quite a strategic. So about a strategic move for our organization. So about say 60% of humanitarian entrants that come to Queensland settle in the Logan region. And because of that, this is the hub, this is the place, this is the home. And I'm not sure if you're aware, but Logan was voted like one of the most welcoming cities in Australia. We have about 234 different ethnicities, languages, people from different cultures living in Logan. So this is a place where I feel at home, because this is where I started. When I arrived in Australia, my first job was in Logan. My job at the doctors was in Logan. So I did my placement at Logan, and I know a lot of people call Logan the Bogan city because of a lot of people live in that low socioeconomic area. But it is a place where it feels like home. It's a place where people settle. It's a place where people can be themselves, regardless of coming from different places. So how I connect with stakeholders is there's existing relationships that I've built over the years, and our organization has had existing relationships with a few stakeholders. So I ensure that the people, the important stakeholders, such as our local council, our local federal members, our local business owners, local schools, and other local organization or not-for-profits are aware of our presence in Logan, are aware of what we do and how we do it. And then in that, we sometimes partner or collaborate in ensuring that our refugee clients that settle in that region are taken care of. So that's kind of strategically how we place ourselves in that area.
Okay. So, what are some of the key challenges that refugees face in settling in a new community, and how do you address these?
Settlement I think because settlement services or humanitarian settlement programs are structured in a certain way. Australia's humanitarian settlement program is structured in such a way that people can access support for first 18 months and then a further 5 years, but after that, that's it. But we find that in that first 18 months, it's very crucial for them to learn the important things that they will take on. Another thing is that there is always the honeymoon period, and then the assimilation period, and then acculturation plays a role in that. But sometimes that doesn't happen for a lot of people, particularly women, until they're able to access things like education, their kids are grown up, or they can access employment opportunities. So the challenge really is the programs are designed for the, I guess, for the government or for the funders, not for the individuals sometimes. And it will be really good in future for our governments or policymakers to start thinking about how they design programs for the people, not for what works for the government and their funding and their models and things like that. And I know this is quite controversial, but the challenge is that a lot of our clients do want to participate in community, but there's not always opportunity to participate because, number one, for example, women, they're often left behind because they're the caregivers, and some come from patriarchal societies where it's very much embedded in them that the man is the provider, you don't have to do it. And when they come to Australia, there's Centrelink, and then sometimes they delay in understanding that they need to empower themselves. And sometimes the push to empower themselves is really difficult because of the structures that have been put in place, and people thinking that they need to be helped and not help themselves. So those are some of the challenges, but there's always good in that we have at least a humanitarian settlement program that is able to support people. And I know the people that work in that space are very dedicated to ensuring that clients have good outcomes. So it's not all gray, but the challenges are similar to that challenge in acculturation and language, accessing service, discrimination, racism, and being unable to fully participate in the things that they want because the structures make it hard. For example, there's some refugees that come with qualifications. For example, when the Afghan crisis happened, some refugees had PhDs and things like that, but they're told, well, it's not acknowledged here in Australia, or we don't recognize it. You have to start afresh. So that's a challenging thing to be told that you were the chief engineer in your country. Now you can't be, you have to start from scratch. It's really deafening to go through that.
So how do you leverage partnerships with local stakeholders to advance social inclusion for your refugee clients?
As I said, we have had existing partnerships. So how we leverage is we stay connected on a regular basis. We attend stakeholder meetings. We stay informed in relation to what's happening in our in our community, and as a result we come together every month or every quarter depending on the level of stakeholder relationship or partnership. So we do have primary, secondary, and tertiary stakeholders. Primary stakeholders are those that we need to stay in touch with to ensure that our clients are well supported. Our secondary are those that obviously we need to touch base every now and then in terms of needing support. For example, our local business owners, when we're talking to them about needing to support our clients with either employment opportunities and things like that. And then we have tertiary stakeholders that are probably people who may be interested in being involved in a certain aspect, such as organizations that are willing to donate things and stuff like that. But our primary are those local governments, other settlement agencies, schools, hospitals. And so we ensure that we keep in contact with them, we keep them informed about what's happening through those stakeholder meetings, emails, and ongoing I guess engagement that is intentional on a regular basis.
Okay. So in your experience, how has multiculturalism positively impacted community development in Logan?
Well, I love that. So when you come to Logan, the first thing you'll notice is the different cuisines for food. For example, I know that culturally, in Shona we say ukamai gasha, unozadziswane kujra. Food is such a powerful tool to connect people. So every time my colleagues come to Logan, we've got another office in Brisbane. It's all about what are we having for lunch? What's tell us all the places with the great food. So there's different cuisines, there's different things in Logan that you can see, whether you're looking for Samoan, you're looking for Chinese, Korean, Vietnamese, anything you can think of, you find in Logan. And besides that, the multiculturalism, you go into a mall in Logan, you're bound to meet someone that looks like you. You're bound to see things that interest you, that remind you of who you are. The openness, the connections that are made are so incredible. So I think Logan, as it stands, because of the number of people settled there, because of the way things happen in Logan, where people are not afraid to come together and band together when there's issues and troubles and connect. It actually is that essence of multiculturalism. And we're not just talking about people from overseas. We're talking about Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders. Our First Nations are such an important part of that. When I sit with the elders in that community, and just chat about the importance of land, which I understand from our own culture, where before you enter someone's village, you go or you just don't enter because you don't know whether there's vicious dogs or whatever. So for me, straight away, when I hear about acknowledgement of country or welcome to country, it's that before you get in, knocking into someone's land, into someone's space, before you actually just jump in. So it's such an important picture of multiculturalism. I think how I would explain it is, once you step into Logan, you see the essence of multiculturalism. You don't even have to explain it with words because it's right there in front of you.
Nice. I love it. So how do you apply visionary leadership in fostering inclusive communities for refugees and immigrants?
So why I say I'm a visionary leader is, for me, there's always, every individual has something to give. And because every individual has something to give, they're able to come up with their ideas on how they see things working, or they look at their work. So my role is to then cultivate that and find ways to embed that into the practice that already exists in our organization.
Right.
So if we have policies, procedures, and ways of work, when I work with my team and look at their strengths and the things that they see as important, I work alongside them to ensure that we can embed it into their practice in a safe way, where they
Mhm.
still adhering to the needs and the policies and the procedures of the organization, and looking out for the needs of our clients, refugees, migrants, but still embedding their own values, practice in how they would do things in a safe way. So
Yes.
it's been so powerful, because then you see people grow. And then when you hear stories, I remember a colleague that I worked with, I met them on the weekend at a beauty salon, and they were like, Janet, you were, a part of my journey, and now I am the manager of this establishment, and my boss wants me to get shares with her, and we can open another. And those stories to me are like, yes, yes, that's it, we got that one right. And for me, even if it's a tough gig being a visionary leader sometimes, because you have hope that people will thrive because you are allowing them to be themselves. But sometimes, as long as people don't also see their own potential, it can be a challenge to
Yeah.
to support them and lead them to where you would like them to be.
So, based on your experience, what advice would you give to individuals aspiring to work in social inclusion and refugee support?
I just say, have an open mind, be open-minded. One thing I always say to my colleagues is, you can save the world one person at a time. You can have 20 people needing your support, but if you can help one, that's enough, because that one can then go and help 20, which is whether their immediate family, their friends, and other people. So you've literally done the 20, but in an opposite way. But often people often look at social inclusion and social work or the human services field as a place where you can save everybody. Unfortunately, you can't. It's life, and people have their own values and ways of thinking, and sometimes it's up to them to then help themselves. You can only support or walk alongside them, but it's about understanding that it's just saving the world means one person at a time. The one person you touch, whether it's a child, whether it's a mother, whether it's a dad that you touch, there's a ripple effect that comes. It's like throwing that stone in the river and you see those ripples. It's the same as that. So that's my advice. Honestly, it just go in with an open mind and do the best you can, and give it the best you can, in the best of your ability, and everything else will fall into place, and that's all you can do.
That's a great philosophy and way of thinking and framing it. So, my final question for you is, what future trends do you foresee in the realm of social inclusion and multiculturalism, especially in the context of refugee settlement?
uh Honestly, I think there's a hype at the moment in the settlement space about how we do settlement. For starters, who are we asking, who are we doing it with? I know my CEO just finished a multicultural framework review with the minister. So obviously there's a lot of hype happening at the moment about how we reframe, how we look at multiculturalism. I know Australia is always boasted that we are a multicultural Australia, but
Yes.
there's always questions about whether we're doing it well, particularly when it comes to how we have treated the First Nations of this country, and how we have responded to their needs. So I think people are making noise, and that might have stemmed from some of it from that Black Lives Matter movement in America, and it's taking off into different parts of the world. And
Yeah.
I think in the next few years we're going to see changes, because people from multicultural communities, refugees and migrants, are standing up and speaking up like never before. Uh, I know a lot of people that have been silent about things, were scared, didn't know who to tell. But I think more and more we're finding opportunities and platforms to speak, such as this one I'm on. It's a platform to speak up or voice my thoughts in a way that I wouldn't have been before. So yeah, definitely, I think it's something that's changing, growing, and becoming better, and more people embracing it as we grow as a multicultural community, as Australia starts to understand the importance and the value that people from multicultural backgrounds bring.
I love it. Janet, it's been an absolute pleasure and an honor to interview you today. Thank you so much for coming online and gracing us with your presence and your amazing story. And thank you for the work you're doing for the refugee community.
Thank you so much.
And thank you to everybody who's tuned in today. The Diversity Connector is a platform that brings you voices from all walks of life, reflecting the beauty of our diversity here in Australia. So come back again tomorrow when I interview yet another amazing guest. In the meantime, have a fantastic day, morning, or evening, wherever you are in the world. And bye for now. Thanks again, Juliet.
Thank you.
And that's a wrap, everybody, on today's episode of the Diversity Connector podcast. Thank you for tuning in and being part of our vibrant and global conversation. I'm your host, Gertrude Mache, and it's been an honor to share this space with you, where voices from all walks of life come together to weave a tapestry of diverse perspectives. Remember, every story you've heard today is a thread in the larger fabric of our shared humanity. So, as you step back into your world, carry these stories with you and let them inspire you to embrace and celebrate the rich diversity around us. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast to help us share these inspiring stories with more listeners. Do follow us on social media by looking for the Diversity Connector podcast for more updates. Until then, keep connecting, keep listening, and keep celebrating the beauty of diversity. This is the Diversity Connector podcast signing off. Stay curious, stay open, and definitely